Everyone's talking about AI adoption, but almost no one asks the harder question first. Who is accountable when it goes wrong? Welcome to AI Made Simple, the transformation series. I'm Valeria Bilkevich, and I talk with global leaders, innovators, and practitioners who are shaping the future of work in the age of AI. I'm joined today by Shamane, founder of AMBA, a strategic growth company helping leaders find their highest leverage move and turn it into commercial momentum. She's also a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and founder of Cyber Risk Meetup, a global community of over 5,000 security professionals. We talk about the real risks hiding behind everyday AI use, shadow AI, data leakage, and the danger of trusting confident-sounding output. We get into why some companies move too fast on AI and others shut it down too fast, and what the golden middle actually looks like. Shamane, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to the conversation that we'll be having.
Shamane, you've built a fascinating career in cybersecurity in a field that actually has not had many women at the table in the history. Why cybersecurity, right? What was the path that got you where you are now?
Okay, so that definitely brings me back to maybe 20 years ago. So I'll keep it short, but I think when I was in school, cybersecurity was not a word that people use in everyday conversation the way we use it today. So what most of us knew about hackers back then came from the movies. So there was this really mysterious, extremely talented people who could break into systems with a few keystrokes. And I remember thinking that is so cool. But more than that, always had a love for gadgets. I think since young, I was quite curious about how things work, and I did not necessarily always understand how computers work at the start. But I think it's about that curiosity to keep things going. That curiosity eventually just led me into studying computer engineering at Nanyang Technological University. So that was in Singapore, graduated with honors. But I was in my path into cybersecurity was not completely traditional. So I started in tech and people facing roles and later pivoted more deeply into cyber. So I would always tell people that it's not too late to pivot into cyber if that's something that you're interested in or you want to make your mark in this field. There are the traditional ways of getting into cybersecurity, but there's also the many non-linear ways. And I would attribute a lot of my journey to, the people who came before me, who opened the doors, who gave me opportunities and allowed me to learn and grow in that space. So I think over time, then, you will end up finding your own lane. And for me, it was about helping to bridge the technical world with the business world. And I realized cybersecurity is not just about systems or tools. It was a lot of focusing on the trust that you build, about leadership as well, decision making, and helping executives understand risk in a way that they can actually act on.
How did your role evolve with generative AI being so much democratized? Of course, artificial intelligence existed long ago, but since ChatGPT and beginning 2023, everybody started using the tools. So I'm wondering how your role and what you do, how did it evolve with this whole generative AI wave?
Yeah, that's a very good question because the more people use it, then it's a good thing in a way because then everyone is onto something. They're all learning and growing together. They're discovering together as well. But with that, when a great tool is in the hands of even everyday users, then there's also the responsibility comes with it of how are they able to really understand the power that they have in those tools. How can they use it safely, wisely, and a lot of education have to go into it because we also want to make sure that they are thinking about the risk and how do they work with AI in a collaborative manner, bringing out the best of the tools, but doing it in a safe way. I would say shadow AI is talked a lot these days, but the bigger point is that, we're not talking about when you talk about security risk, it's not just about being hacked in the traditional sense anymore, because a lot of AI risk today comes from how people use AI in invisible, in the ungoverned ways. So I would say just very basic level, because this podcast is about AI made simple. Someone pasting, confidential data into an AI tool, someone uploading a contract for summarization, someone that's using AI to analyze customer information, or if you're using it to connect a third-party plugin or an agent without realizing the permissions that, all these tools have been given. Or there's a lot of these cases where people are using AI-generated content without verifying if it's accurate. So the way I usually think about it is there are quite a few risks that keep showing up again and again. So if you think about it at high level, one is, I mentioned already, like shadow AI. The tools are just being used without the organization really knowing. The second one would be data leakage, where sensitive business or customer information goes into the tools that have not been accessed. And then there is the overtrusting as well of the output, because AI can sound very confident even when it's wrong. And increasingly, there is also the risk around third-party tools and the agents, especially when they're connected to emails, documents, systems, code bases, or workflows. So that is what makes AI risk quite tricky, and it doesn't always look like a security incident at the start. So sometimes it can just look like someone trying to get through their work faster and trying to be more productive. And because of that, they overlook a lot of risks that comes with it.
Do you have any examples of what went wrong in the companies that ignored these risks, or maybe did not have the guidelines in place, did not educate enough their employees?
Yeah, there are quite a lot of these examples. It usually it doesn't start with a wrong intention. Most of them, the employees have good intention and they're trying to use it to increase their productivity or automate certain things. And because they give too much control to those AI agents, it ends up wiping off, all their data unnecessarily, or sends out emails that doesn't sound like them and is not meant to be sent out to those could be customers or partners they work with. So there are too many cases like that. And in a way that's quite concerning as well, because it keeps growing and growing, and we are finding that to be a common conversation these days. So I think for me, like if I were to just summarize maybe the key things that I'm saying, I do see two extremes right now. So there is like one sort of organization that fall in a bucket where I would say, it's like the yay or the nay. So there is some organizations that are yay, too fast. They rush into AI adoption because everyone is so excited about not just productivity, but speed and the competitive advantage that they want to gain. But they did not bring governance, security, privacy, legal accountability into those conversations early enough. So the trick is like you have to start this conversation right at the beginning, not only at the end. And then on the other side, you see some organizations are too fast. They shut everything down immediately into like just de-risking everything. But in doing so, they miss the opportunity to learn, to build, and to even enhance their capability and guide their people properly. So I understand why both reactions would happen. Leaders would either want to move very quickly because they see the opportunity, or because they might want to shut it down because they see the risk. But I think the real work that needs to happen is to help people with those who are in somewhere in the middle. They're adopting AI with enough intention, structure, and accountability. Because I would say AI doesn't just create capability, it actually magnify what already exists. So if an organization already has weak governance or unclear ownership or siloed decision making or just poor data habits and unclear accountability, then AI will really expose and amplify that even more.
So essentially what you're saying is that the golden middle is you allow your employees, your people to experiment with those tools, but do it not in a sandbox, but with those guardrails.
Yep.
So we give you this governance or this policy everybody's aware of. And inside of this guardrails, you can experiment and build and your agents.
Yeah, I think also we need to think about, we want to make it safe for them to be able to use it in a confident manner. But nothing's too safe at the end of the day. But I think we have to think about what happens if, let's say, if there's an AI assisted response that gave a customer wrong advice, who's going to own that decision? Is it the employee who used it, the business unit that approved the process, or the organization that allowed the workflow to go live? So this is where many organizations are not prepared. They're asking like, how do we use AI faster, before asking, where should AI be used, who is accountable, and what should never be outsourced to AI. So those thinking process as well needs to be already considered beforehand. So it's clear for people to know how they can operate within that.
You already mentioned the also necessity to provide AI literacy trainings or to make sure that people understand the risks. From your experience, from the companies you work with, is the topic of security and risks addressed enough? Is everybody really understands it? What risks does it have if I upload my skill, for example, from internet?
Yeah, I'm smiling because that's a lot of cyber leaders. It's a battle for them as well because they have the same mission to empower organizations to understand risk better and how can they work with them in a smarter way, I would say. But you will see like the companies that are approaching this more maturely, not necessarily the ones with the most tools. They are the ones actually where the leadership has set the tone already. The teams are not left to interpret on their own on how to use AI. So at a simple level, they're asking, I would say, the top 3 things that needs to be asked is, where is AI being used? What data is going into it? And what decisions or workflows is it influencing? So the more forward-looking organization would be able to create structure, process, education for people to use AI with confidence. One big thing when it comes to like security, right? A lot of organizations do it's a challenge for them to know where their data really sits. So AI does at another layer. And now everyone needs to try to understand where AI is showing up in the business and how it is changing the way people work. Good governance shouldn't just be a department of no, because every time you just say no, it's just people will find a way around it. But if you do good governance well, then it gives people clearer boundaries so they can actually move faster with confidence.
Shamane, in your book, Building a Cyber Resilient Business, you argue that security can't just sit in the IT department. It has to be embedded across the whole business. Now, every department is using AI. So where the biggest risks are coming from and how do you see this as a shared responsibility?
Yeah, that's a very good question because for a long time as well, the same journey has been trying to get different departments on the same journey and understanding and supporting the same mission of how security should be. It's a cyber risk. If you want to become resilient as an organization, it's a team sport. It takes all the different leaders across different departments and divisions to really work together and champion it as well. So likewise, for AI, when every department is now adopting AI, that really becomes even more important. And every department needs a basic level of security, privacy, and accountability awareness. The risk is also spread out now. So it's definitely not sitting in just one department. To give you an example, HR, they might be using, and we are seeing them use AI across recruitment, employee information. They are finding ways as well to identify new skills that are required in the AI era. So they are using AI in another level. What about legal and finance? They would be working with contracts, forecasts, sensitive business data, sales and marketing as well. They might be putting customer insights or working with AI using like their proposals or campaign plans into the AI tools. So each of them looks good on the surface, but the data involved could be quite sensitive. So definitely helps to have maybe likewise what we're doing with cybersecurity, having AI champions inside the different business functions where they can advocate for responsible AI. The good thing is that they understand the context of their own department and they can help translate the security and governance principles into everyday decisions. So now cyber resilience has to become part of how the business operates and not something that IT comes in to clean up later. And the same thing should follow for AI.
And when we talk about governance, because these tools evolve so fast, for example, ChatGPT recently launched workspace agents and skills as well as Gemini Enterprise. There are agents now and of course Claude with Cowork, Claude Code. Many companies are feeling lost. Now we have to rewrite our AI policy and then look, maybe in 1 year, there will be agent teams orchestrating agent teams. How can you keep your AI policy or the governance that you build around these tools up to date because it's changing so quickly?
I would say you cannot do it alone because it's very dependent on what obviously what the organization's context and things like that. But it helps to be part of, whether it's committees or being involved in communities as well that are actively doing a lot of research and discovery and understanding of those spaces, because that's one of the fastest way to grow together. So, for example, there's like a global responsible AI council that's been formed.
Mhm.
And then, when you're part of that group, you see the different movements of other countries, new regulations that have been put in place, what other countries are doing, what top organizations are doing, and those cascade down as well to the rest of it's not just public sector, but across private sector as well, because you can learn from public and private sector. I always think that they can collaborate more and learn from each other. And you see a lot of benefits from that. So that would be a good way as well to help upskill faster and keep on top of what are the, good ways to go about it and incorporate that into your own organization too.
If you could sit down with a business leader listening to this episode and give them one piece of advice about AI and cybersecurity, one thing they have to do this week, what would that be?
Yes, that's a great question because there's a lot of things that business leaders can do. There's a lot of advice, there's different priorities, but I'll say maybe start with something really simple. I will ask every business leader to find out how their people are actually using AI in their organization. So not how they think people are using it, but how the people are really using it. And then, just ask your departments things like what AI tools are you using? What kind of work are you using them for? And what data are you putting into those tools? Because once the leaders have the visibility, it helps them make better decisions about guardrails, training, or governance, and accountability.
Thank you so much. Shamane, I have two fireside questions, so very quick ones. First one is, what's one AI tool that you personally cannot live without right now? And how do you use it?
Wow. Okay. I have a favorite. No, I have three favorites. So it's
Just
quite hard.
one. Just one. You're allowed to just pick one.
I'll say lovable because it's so fascinating to really do some vibe coding, and then it pushes the boundaries of what you can traditionally build with just your developer skills, programming skills versus being able to speak the words and then form the architecture of it, and then using AI agents to help you do the build out. And you get to see a lot of great proof of concepts coming to life in that way, and helps you to be even more creative with what you want to build.
Can you share, what did you build where you were proud of yourself using Lovable?
I did do a lot of different things because it was part of learning as well and challenging yourself. Like, for example, a lot of people use LinkedIn to share, their profile, their thoughts. But I thought it would be interesting to audit your profile and see how you score in terms of are you being able to share the messaging in the right way with people, and especially with your community. Does it send the right signals based on your profile? So it came out of a way just to audit your LinkedIn profile and automate that, and comes out with cool reports, and you're able to collaborate with the tool to help churn out the outcome in a really fast manner.
I think I did one of those that you were sharing, maybe with some birds or something like this, where you were like a character, like a LinkedIn character based on your posts and based on your profile. That was very fun.
That's a different one. That was on personalities. So again, I feel like it's helpful for people understand the different personalities or stakeholders they have to work with better. And more importantly, you need to understand how you're communicating and maybe what kind of people you're able to speak to based on the personality you are and also their personality. So coming up with an assessment and a way to bring in the DISC, DISC assessment together with a lot of other behavioral assessments and putting that together to come up with a fun fun outcome of like what bird are you?
Yeah.
The dope personality. Yeah. So that was another example.
Yeah, it was a great one. And one more question. What skill do you think will become more valuable as AI gets better? Everybody now is talking about future skills and future-proofing oneself. So what do you think is just one skill that will be irreplaceable in the coming years?
That's a very great question because it's so topical right now. If I give a quick analogy, which has helped me also, is, when we look at, I think of AI like a horse, because we're in a year of the horse, according to the Asian year. And, it's very hard to outrun the horse and we can never overtake them. However, if we get on the horse and we ride it, we can go further together. So the way I see is it's a great skill if we can learn how to work with AI better and understand it better and bring in our human judgment, because together it can be a very powerful way of going ahead and, not leaving people behind. We definitely need that skill today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of the insights and taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You can find Shamane Tan on LinkedIn and learn more about her work at AMBA. All links are in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, follow AI Made Simple, the transformation series, for more conversations with practitioners shaping how AI is actually adopted inside organizations. Thanks for listening.